Welcome to the Morristown Unitarian Fellowship, our online and on-the-ground multi-generational congregation. We are a spiritually alive, justice-centered, and radically inclusive community, and we are so glad to be with you. Whether this is your first time visiting, your 100th time with us, or there are too many times to count. It is so important to have a community of reflection and aspiration, comfort and commitment. This is so present to me this morning in the wake of parents, children, and teachers navigating the return to school, in the wake of devastating fires burning across the West, and in the wake of the huge loss in the form of the death of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on Friday. It is not just good to be together, it is necessary to be together and to experience firsthand that we are not alone. We are here for one another and for the wider world of which each of us is a part. Welcome, all of you, to our virtual sanctuary.
Good morning and welcome to our community. We'll open our service today by lighting a flaming chalice.
We invite you to join us by lighting a candle or flaming chalice with us from home.
We recite words our families often share while lighting the symbol of our faith.
We light this chalice because we are Unitarian Universalists,
We are the fellowships of the open mind
loving heart.
and helping hands
Together we bring peace
and
justice to the world.
As a boy growing up in England, John Murray dreaded Sundays. His family, led by a stern father, rose at dawn each Sunday and spent the entire day praying and attending church. John's parents believed in the Calvinist idea of God, that God decided whether a person would go to heaven or to hell before they were even born. And a person could do nothing to change this. Only a certain few people were chosen to go to heaven. At this same time in London, a small group of people called Universalists were preaching ideas about God that were very different from the Calvinists. John and his wife Eliza learned about these Universalist ideas about God. They spent several years carefully thinking through their beliefs, and in the end, they chose Universalism. Their friends were shocked, and they refused to be friends anymore. But John and Eliza didn't care. Universalism gave them hope. He and Eliza made new friends, and to add to their happiness, they had a baby boy. Then, suddenly, everything changed. Their baby died, and Eliza became sick. John spent all of their money and borrowed more to save her, but she died anyway. Also, John was thrown into debtor's prison for owing money, but Eliza's brother brought him home. Promising that he would never preach again, John decided to cross the ocean to America and disappear into the wilderness. In 1770, he sailed to America in the Hand in Hand. The ship was supposed to dock in New York City, but instead the Hand in Hand got stuck on a sandbar off the coast of New Jersey. The captain asked John to go ashore to find fresh food and water for the crew. John, glad to get off the ship, walked through the tall pines until he came to a clearing with a large house and, to his astonishment, a small church made of rough sawed lumber. A farmer stood in front of that house, cleaning fish.
Welcome! I'm Thomas Potter.
I'm John Murray. I'm from that ship, Hand in Hand.
I saw it across in the bay. Stuck on a sandbar she is.
Yes. I was wondering, could I buy your fish to take back to the crew?
You can have them for the taking, and gladly, as long as you come back tonight with my wife and I'll tell you all about this little church that I've built.
Agreed.
John gratefully carried the fish to the sailors and then returned to Thomas's home for the night.
Come, my friend, take a seat. Oh, this fire's so nice on this chilly evening. I'm glad you could come. You may be the very person I've been waiting for.
Waiting for? Whatever do you mean?
You see, I grew up here in these woods. I never had the chance to read or write, but I always liked hearing the Bible read. And I thought a lot about religion. Trouble is, my ideas are different from the ideas of the preachers who travel through these parts. I built this little church myself for all of the traveling preachers to use. I asked them questions and I talked to them, but they don't know what to make of me and my ideas. I keep looking for a preacher of a very different sort, and I want a preacher who will teach about a loving God who saves all people, not just a chosen few. Today, when I saw your ship in the bay, a voice inside me seemed to say, "There, Potter, and that ship may be the preacher you have so long been expecting."
I am not a preacher.
Do you mean to say that you have never preached?
Well, I have preached, and I do believe as you do in a loving God.
I knew it. I knew you were the preacher I've been waiting for. You must preach in my church this Sunday.
No, sir, I never want to preach again. Tomorrow, as soon as the wind changes, I am on my way.
Well, sir, how about this proposition? If the wind hasn't changed and you're still here on Sunday, would you preach for me then?
I just want to get away from everything. If I preach, I know there will be trouble. Folks here, they mostly have Calvinist views. Why start trouble for myself in a new country? And besides, I'll be long gone before Sunday.
So we have a deal. If you're still here on Sunday, you'll preach in my church.
But the wind will surely change. There's no way I will be here on Sunday.
But if you are, will you preach?
But it will not happen, sir.
But if it does...
Well, sir, because you have been so kind to me, I will agree. But as soon as the winds change, I must be on my way, and that is going to happen before Sunday.
We will see, good sir. We will see.
Good morning, sir. Has the wind changed?
No, sir, it has not.
Good morning, sir. The wind?
Hasn't changed.
Hey, where are you going?
Why, I'm off to tell all my neighbors that they can expect a sermon such as they've never heard before.
And so on Sunday, September 30th, 1770, Thomas Potter's dream came true. And a Universalist sermon was delivered right there in his chapel. As for John Murray, after that Sunday, he knew he still wanted to preach. He organized the first Universalist church in America in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Just as he expected, there were people who were angry at him for preaching ideas so different from Calvinism. They spread lies about him, but he stuck to his beliefs. After many years, he fell in love again and married. He and his wife, Judith, had a daughter. In Lenoka Harbor, New Jersey, the little church that waited so long is waiting for you to come for a visit in Murray Grove.
John Murray sailed over the ocean. John Murray sailed over the sea. He just lost his wife and his baby, and he was as sad as can be. Sail on, sail on, sail on, John Murray, sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on, John Murray, sail on. The ship he was on hit a sandbar. The wind would not let it go free. John Murray got off in New Jersey to see what he could see. Sail on, sail on, sail on, John Murray, sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on, John Murray, sail on. On landing he met Thomas Potter, who owned his own church in a vale, and demanded that Murray preach for him if the wind would not let his ship sail. Preach on, preach on, preach on, John Murray, preach on, preach on, preach on, preach on, preach on, John Murray, preach on. The wind kept his ship on the sandbar. John Murray was true to his word, with a sermon on godly forgiveness. Universalist teaching was heard. Preach on, preach on, preach on, John Murray, preach on,
I invite you into a time of reflective meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, we are holding so much fear. What will happen to our health? What will happen to our education? What will happen to our courts? What will happen to our forests? We are holding so much hope. How can we move towards resilience? How can we move towards equity? How can we move towards restorative justice? How can we move towards healing our planet? May we also know that we are held by a love that is larger than any one of us, that manifests most when we knit together the bonds of community, guided by a loving kindness that is rooted and strong, and that excludes no one. May we behold within us and within our neighbors the possibility of a renewal that leads to choosing life over death, connecting all to resources over only some, creating democracy over plutocracy, cultivating small carbon footprints over large. May we hold up a vision of a more whole and holy world than the one we inherit today. And may we find the courage to reach for it, resist for it, and persist for it with our every breath until the last. Amen, and blessed be, and may it be so. Our faith is the result of the blending of two traditions in 1961, Unitarianism and Universalism. To some, Unitarianism is our better half, And of course, to others, Universalists deserve that title. Unitarians are often thought of as being the head and Universalists as the heart of our association. The American Unitarian Association, the AUA, was founded by Unitarian congregations in 1825. The denomination grew out of the liberal wing of Congregationalism. Unitarians were often characterized as well-educated and guided by reason. Unitarianism grew up over and against the backdrop and fervor of the revivals of the Second Great Awakening. Our Unitarian ancestors were suspicious of what they saw as excesses of religious passion all around them, and they aimed instead to be cool and collected in their decision-making. Universalists, by contrast, are often characterized as being led by their heart. The Universalist General Convention, later called the Universalist Church of America, the UCA, was organized by Universalist congregations in 1866. Universalism was often associated with farmers and others who didn't have access to higher education. Its converts came out of every Christian sect, all people who came to the realization that God's nature was a radical love that would exclude no one from redemption or salvation. Early Universalist preachers are portrayed as very passionate about their faith, and sometimes it was the most passionate person and not necessarily well-reasoned speaker who would be chosen by an elder for ordination. A formal education wasn't held up as the most important thing, and passions were trusted to lead to truth. Thomas Starr King, who lived in the 1800s and for whom Starr King School for the Ministry is named, was ordained as both a Unitarian and a Universalist preacher. He defined the difference between the two traditions this way. Universalists believed that God was too good to damn people, and Unitarians believed that they were too good to be damned by God. I invite us to think of these two traditions as two halves that make a whole, rather than dwelling on which half is better, the head or the heart. We need both. What is more, over time, many Unitarians became Universalist in their thinking, and vice versa. The people who believed in one God and in Jesus as a teacher and prophet who was a moral exemplar but not God, began to believe that God's will was ultimately for all people to be redeemed and saved, and the other way around. Their theologies converged, and in fact, the youth movements of both denominations began to meet together, sometimes in what were called uni rallies in the late 1890s. And the two youth organizations formally merged in 1953, 8 years earlier than the adults did, under the banner of Liberal Religious Youth, or LRY. Today, we are celebrating our Universalist roots. We are only 10 days away from the milestone from our history that we shared in our Story for All Ages. It is 250 years from the day that Reverend John Murray preached what is often considered the first Universalist sermon on our shores in this great state of New Jersey on September 30th, 1770. Today, we honor how in this historic time that we live in, where we are facing the winds of change once again, Universalism can help us anchor in love and sail towards liberation. John Murray was one of those admired and passionate Universalist speakers. He had a reputation of drawing huge crowds and planting seeds for new Universalist congregations. While there were other Universalists on these shores before his arrival, it was his commitment to devote his life not only to the congregation that he served, but to itinerant preaching up and down the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic that grew the roots and shoots from which Universalism exists today. That's why Murray achieved the moniker of the father of Universalism in America. His compelling message of God's love and universal salvation for all, his work for religious freedom, including the freedom for you and I not to be taxed by a particular state religion, were most unwelcome by the orthodoxy of his day. And at times, his life was under threat. One day in 1774, Reverend Murray was attacked with stones while preaching in the 11th Congregational Society on School Street in Boston. Not only that, his enemies had spread a noxious fluid on the pulpit to keep him from preaching that day. Despite the stench, Murray kept on. But then rocks were thrown through the window. Fortunately, they missed the congregants, but one rugged stone, estimated to weigh 1.5 pounds, came flying through the window with enough force to kill. It landed just behind the pulpit and narrowly missed John Murray's head. He picked up the stone, held it up, and said, "This argument is solid and weighty, but it is neither rational nor convincing." At that point, his friends begged him to come down from that pulpit and to stop risking his life. But he quieted them down and shared these memorable words. "With your good leave, I will pursue my subject, and while I have a 'thus saith the Lord' for every point of doctrine which I advance, not all the stones in Boston, except they stop my breath, shall shut my mouth or arrest my testimony." John Murray paved the way for Universalists in our country, but it is probably Hosea Ballou who made the largest theological impact. Hosea Ballou's ideas were radical enough in his time that even some Universalists feared them. Reverend Ballou was born in 1771, the 11th child in a Calvinist Baptist preacher's family who was raised on hellfire and brimstone sermons. He had a keen mind and a spirited soul. Ballou was eventually persuaded towards Universalist thinking by the likes of Caleb Rich, Ethan Allen, and Thomas Paine. Ballou felt so deeply called by this new, radical, inclusive version of Christianity that he became a lay itinerant preacher in the early 1790s, even without the benefit of any formal training. He was actually ordained at a Universalist annual meeting in the most unusual way. At the climax of one of his elders' sermons, Elhanan Winchester, to everyone's surprise, including Ballou's, suddenly pressed the Bible against the young preacher's chest and declared him charged and ordained right there on the spot. In 1805, Hosea Ballou published a guiding document that Unitarian Universalist ministers refer to this day, called the Treatise on Atonement. While our beliefs are no longer limited to Universalist Christianity, some still do identify that way. And it is important for all of us to understand where we came from as a faith movement. Here are a few of the beliefs that Ballou spread far and wide in the 1800s. Ballou recognized the fallibility of human beings and our limited capacity to understand at all times the most moral choice. For Ballou, sin is defined as acting in a way that is at odds with the best human understanding of what is loving, kind, and compassionate. Ballou argues that sin serves a useful purpose. He believes that humans are motivated to attain happiness, and that this is why we create societies, seek knowledge, till the earth, and so on. To the modern ear, the word fulfillment might better suit his understanding of the word happiness. Sin, and he lists several, including hatred, idolatry, and drunkenness among them, is a result of a misguided search for happiness. Ballou rejects the idea of an angry God who wants to be appeased by the suffering of human beings. He understands atonement to be the work of reconciliation. In the story of Adam, Ballou believes it is Adam who is in need of reconciliation, not God who requires it. In his view, God loves Adam no less after he bit that apple. Rather, it is Adam who must experience a change of heart so that he will make choices that are in alignment with the moral good. This atoning love, Ballou writes, is not reserved for Christians only, but is available to all sects, denominations, people, and kingdoms. Ballou views Jesus' life as infused by a spirit of love and a closeness to God that led him towards an exemplary life of wise and moral deeds. The consequence of true atonement is the universal reconciliation of all people to holiness and happiness. Ballou believes that when we die, the dueling nature of human beings between the flesh and the spirit is changed. In essence, we lose the inclination to do bad things. If the point is reconciliation in the sense of becoming equipped to always make the moral choice, then there is no longer a need for punishment, according to Ballou. Finally, he urges the importance of open-mindedness and recognizing with humility that anything that we view as truth may one day fall away and seem ignorant or immoral. Ballou advises people to share brotherly love, which he defines as showing respect and understanding to all people. He writes, "If we agree in brotherly love, then there is no disagreement that can do us injury. But if we do not, then no other agreement can do us any good." Over 200 years after Ballou and Murray, when we think about what we have inherited from early universalism, our first principle may be one thing that comes to mind. Our covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person is rooted in the conviction that all are worthy of salvation. It wasn't long before believing that all would be saved in the afterlife led to working for the kingdom of heaven to be realized right here on earth. This is also expressed in our fourth source, where we speak about responding to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves. We can look back 100 years ago to the time that the social gospel was sweeping liberal churches. Clarence Skinner was a great example of a universalist preacher who realized that his theology must connect with deeds in the wider community. In 1917, Clarence Skinner authored the Universalist Commission on Social Services Declaration of Social Principles, which called for the following programs to be enacted through the Universalist Church. And they still seem relevant in terms of a message and a vision for us to close with today. He wrote, first, their program was to build an economic order which shall give to every human being an equal share in the common gifts of God, and in addition, all that he shall earn by his own labor. May we be inspired by these words in a time of pandemic to be faithful in our efforts to alleviate food insecurity and homelessness. Second, their program included creating a social order in which there shall be equal rights for all, special privileges for none, and the help of the strong for the weak until the weak become strong. May we be inspired by that statement in a time of mass incarceration and police brutality to learn how to counter oppression and to follow the calling of liberation. Third, their program included a moral order in which all human law and action shall be an expression of the moral order of the universe. May we be inspired by that conviction to work for a just democracy and for our courts to uphold liberty and equality for all people in the land. And fourth, their program included a vision of a spiritual order which shall build out of the growing lives of living people the growing temple of the living God. May we be inspired by this final testimony to renew our commitments to build the beloved community, a reflection of heaven on earth that requires every one of us to take shape.
I invite us all to sing together the fire of commitment. From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
And now for John Murray's well-known charge. Go out into the highways and the byways and give the people something of your new vision. You may possess only a small light, but uncover it and let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding into the hearts and minds of people. Give them not hell, but hope and courage, and preach the kindness and everlasting love of God.
We are so glad you came today.
At the end of our worship, we extinguish our chalice.
We invite you to blow out your flame as we do, and we'll share words written by Elizabeth Sell Jones.
We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment.
These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.